That daggone Meredith, she cracks me up. She cracks me up. But if y'all are new here, hit subscribe. Do that real quick. Also, take that mic down. Not mic. Take that thumb down. Thumbs up the video. Don't thumbs it down. Thumbs it up. Get in the comments. Let me know what y'all think. Hype the video. Share the video. And yeah, let's get into this. So we start the episode off with Bronwyn walking through the airport in a costume. To pick Todd up, I said, Bronwyn... But they're driving home, and she's pretty much talking to him, pretty much stating that she's not telling him this, but she's telling us this in her confessional, that she's still irritated with what happened with her and Ty, but she doesn't feel like having issues are indicative of a bad relationship. I said, yeah, having issues is not indicative of a bad relationship if the issues are not the issues that you're having. The issues that you're having in your marriage is infidelity. The man that you're married to does not love you. You're desperate for his attention, everybody else's attention. And you should be getting his attention because that is your husband. But the fact that he doesn't give you that and you're still there, he still cheats on you. Those are issues that you shouldn't have in a marriage. And the fact that you still are doing that proves that you're only there for one reason and one reason only. And we know what that is. But she then states that she chooses to stay married to him because there are wonderful things outside of those issues. I said, okay, Bronwyn, okay. But Ty then starts asking her about her weekend and whatever. And she pretty much tells him, like, what did you tell me before you left? Like, I'm in trouble right now because of what you told me not to do before. And he's like, how I mentioned not to get involved in the shit that happened on the plane. Of course, like, he's giving her sound advice because, hey, you weren't even there. Like, Bronwyn, she brings the mess on herself. Like, she's unnecessarily messy. And it's like, it could be done for good TV, but it's not good TV when it's somebody like Bronwyn who is being messy, which then brings heat to her when we all know that she so desperately wants their attention and wants their approval, yet you're being messy in those relationships and then you want to get mad whenever it comes back to you. So he's telling her the truth, but she's still doing it. But he was like, I'm sure it turned into a shit show, which is what it did. But Bronwyn then says she's bummed now because Whitney's not going to trust her because she had told Meredith. Why would Whitney trust you? Because y'all were having a private conversation and you went and ran that shit back to Meredith. Didn't tell her that you did that. First of all, you shouldn't have been doing it anyways. But not only that, you didn't tell Whitney that you said it. And then Whitney finds out when she's getting confronted. Of course she's not going to trust you. But Todd then says that they should have a group sit down and everybody just apologize. Todd, you know that's not going to happen. But Bronwyn then says that she thinks that they can't move forward because everybody else is so worried about what somebody else is sitting on, or if there's something else that somebody knows that they don't know anything about. But Bronwyn, she wants to throw a party to celebrate her citizenship, to get all the gossip out and all the animosity out so that they can move forward. You know that's not going to happen, but we'll see. We see Whitney at home with Justin. Awkward silence. He tries to break the awkward silence, pretty much asking her what she's thinking about because she's sitting outside. She's looking at the water outside by their house. And she was like, I mean, I saw the large transfer from our bank account to one of the vendors, and that hurt. I'm like, are y'all that broke that you're upset that he's actually paying the debt that you owe? Like, what? But he then says that we have to make things right with the people that we owed money to. And I'm like, what's the issue with him doing that? Like, you just going to continue to have debt? Like, is that what you want? But Whitney says it just sucks because I just had an intuition telling me to not start the merging of the businesses together. And I didn't listen to my intuition, which, I mean, I can understand that. Like, I can understand being frustrated and stuff, but that's your own. You did that yourself. She's going to eventually end up kind of like pointing the blame at Justin. But you're grown. You don't have to make those decisions. And you should have listened to yourself. But I mean, at the end of the day, you did what you did. You have to deal with it. But she then starts talking about how trying to get out of the ownership of the company, remove herself all completely so she can get her beauty name, her brand, and her inventory back. But she then tells Justin that she doesn't feel like she's been told the truth. And he's like, neither have I. Like, she's talking about like the business aspect. And she talks about how the week that she had the opportunity to get her business line in Sephora, like she's talking about how she wanted to get it in Sephora, get it in Target, get it into all of those main stores where she's able to maximize on the revenue that she could get in those stores that most people go to get that type of stuff. So she was like, that week that I was pretty much having a meeting with the owner of Sephora was the week that we pretty much inked in that business deal with the business venture. So she's basically like stating like, I just missed out on that opportunity because I went and did this and now I lost out on that and now I have nothing at this point. So he's like, I mean, I don't know what else to say to you besides sorry at this point. And she's like, that's what you're missing. As much as I'm trying not to resent you for it, it's hard to separate you from the business. And the producer ends up asking her in her confessional, like, do you feel like something's changed in your marriage? And she says in the beginning, it brought us closer, like the whole struggling and stuff, it brought us closer, but it made me struggle because the separation from the business and the marriage became one, and I don't know what I need at this point, and it has affected my marriage. He holds himself accountable to her. He's like pretty much saying, I'm sorry that it happened the way it did. He tells her that he always thought that he pretty much knew that her business would be successful, and he thought that this would be a way that they could work together. She tells him, apart from the family, like him and the family, her beauty business is everything that she knows and everything that she has, and now that it's gone. And I'm like, she just trying to put all that on him. It's like, damn, do you not realize that he also probably feels bad too? And there's always opportunities where you can start a business, and sometimes they just fail. Sometimes you take a risk and sometimes it just does not work out. So for you to take that all out on him like that, I'm like, have some type of compassion, because you think he wanted that to happen? Like, but whatever. We see Heather at home decorating for her daughter who's graduating. That's all I got. Bronwyn, she's at home and she's talking about being a big supporter of the LGBTQIA plus community, and how horrified she was to find out that there was a law passed in Utah about pride flags not being able to be displayed at government buildings. And she wanted to support the community by putting flags everywhere else that you can put a flag at that's not government affiliated. But Muzzy comes down because she was talking to her on the phone. And Bronwyn's pretty much telling her, like, I feel like this is a big deal. As you know, it's a big deal to me, even though I know that how you feel politically. So we all can clearly infer that Muzzy's probably homophobic. So can I say I'm shocked? No. But Muzzy then says, as long as it helps you, I don't care. Now, if you ask me to go to a strip club, I'll draw the line there. I said, okay. But Muzzy, she starts talking about how she loves doing crazy things that she wouldn't do on her own because she doesn't worry about what other people think anymore as she used to in the past, but now she's grown. You can tell throughout this entire scene that Muzzy's trying to show up for Bronwyn. She does in this scene, so I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Do I personally buy into it? No. But we'll get to it. Bronwyn, she then says pretty much like, do I have to wait until I'm 80 years old? Because you know how much I care about what other people think about me, which you already know that shit irritates me. Like, you're grown. Why do you care? I can't stand people that care so much about what other people think. I've never been the type of person, even as a kid, I've never cared what anybody thinks about me. As long as I know who I am at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You can tell me and say shit about me all day long. It don't float anything over here because I know who I am. Once you know who you are and are confident in who you are, nothing anybody says about you should ever matter. That's proof that Bronwyn is not confident in who she is, which, like we can state, you can chop it up to her childhood, Muzzy being involved in that. But as a grown woman, I feel like as a grown adult, there's a certain period in time where you need to start being able to be confident in who you are and not needing validation from other people. But she then talks about how she worries about what Muzzy thinks about her, which, again, I don't know why you would care anymore. It's like, yeah, that's her mom, but like Muzzy has proven time and time again that she don't really care about you like that, truthfully. So at that point, fuck her. It sounds crazy to say that because that is her mother. But at this point, like, take her for what she is at this point. But Muzzy then says that you should care about what I think to a certain extent. I said, why? But Bronwyn then says that they've struggled in the past because of the decisions that Bronwyn had made. But what's funny to her and interesting is that Muzzy didn't agree with the whole situation with her getting pregnant at 19 with Gwen. Hold on. I misread my note. Bronwyn was talking about the decisions that she had made that Muzzy didn't agree with, and Muzzy being vocal about it. And Muzzy was like, yeah, I learned my lesson. Have you? But Bronwyn says that they had moved past it, and she finds it funny how the one main issue that they really had was the fact that Bronwyn had Gwen young, and it's just funny because she loves Muzzy. She loves Gwen so much. It's like, you had an issue with me being pregnant with Gwen, and now you love her so much. And Muzzy tells her, you've been a great mom for her. I said, oh, wow. Good to hear. And Bronwyn, you can tell, like, that's what she wanted to hear. She's been waiting to hear that. She gets emotional. Muzzy tells her to be proud of herself because she's doing a great job. I'm like, finally, you telling her what you need to be telling her as her mother. But Bronwyn, she's crying, stating that that's all she really wanted was to make her mom proud. And Muzzy was like, yeah, you do make me proud. Like I said, in this moment in time, I felt like it was performative. But at this point, she's at least saying the shit. It's not my business, whatever. But Bronwyn then says that I know you're not the first to give out compliments, so it means a lot to hear you say this. And Muzzy says, like, it's not that I don't mean what I'm stating, which I question it. Or she's like, also, too, it doesn't mean that I don't think about it, but I just feel like my parents were the same way. But I always knew that they loved me, but expected more from me. So that's why I'm the same way. You're supposed to change that. But Muzzy then talks about how Bronwyn has always been vocal about how proud of Gwen she is, how much she loves her. She tells her that. And she saw, pretty much taking that, Bronwyn saw how the way she was raised didn't work for her, so she changed it when it came to Gwen, as she should. That's what you should have did. But Muzzy then states that Gwen is well-rounded, and she gets that from Bronwyn, and Bronwyn starts getting emotional again. But we then move to the final scene, which is the bulk of the episode, which is the party. Angie arrives first. They're in this like attire to fit the occasion for her celebration of her citizenship. And Angie arrives with an American flag very, very early, very early. But Whitney, Brittany, and Heather, they're riding together as Lisa and Meredith are riding together as well. Mary's coming 45 minutes late. Classic. But they're all trying to figure out what's going on, why they're going to do what they're doing. But Whitney and Heather, they're catching up with Brittany. Brittany tells them that her and Meredith had met in the park, and Meredith seemingly was apologizing. And Brittany was like, I mean, I told her that I could see why what I said was a trigger to her because it was shady. And Whitney was like, so did she not address verbally attacking you? And Brittany was like, no. Heather asked what she apologized for, and Brittany says for hurting my feelings, which is what happened. Like Meredith, and that's why I respect Meredith. Even if Meredith was in the wrong, I respect the fact that she at least sticking to her story. I can't do nothing but respect it, but we'll get to it in a minute. But Meredith is over there telling Lisa that they agreed, talking about her and Brittany, to treat each other with kindness and respect. And Lisa says that's not going to last very long, and it's not. But Brittany tells the girls, Whitney and Heather, that she doesn't think that they'll ever be friends, but at this point, she's ready to move on. Please, because I'm tired of hearing about this plain shit that we don't even know. Like, it's what's so annoying is the fact that we don't even know what's true because we can't see it. It's like it'd be one thing to watch the show and actually know what actually happened, but we don't know. It's all hearsay. We don't really know. But Whitney says, I'm proud of you because I don't think I could do it. But Whitney says in her confessionals that she wishes that Meredith would take accountability because she had accused all of them of lying about it. But Whitney's crew, they arrive. Angie's relieved because she finally realized she was in the right spot. But Lisa and Meredith, they arrive shortly after. They all are asking where Mary is, and we find out that she's 40 minutes late. But Bronwyn, she then appears from underneath the garage and welcomes them in. She's in full costume, as Bronwyn does. She lets them know that she's been studying to become a U.S. citizen, and she welcomes them on in. And Lisa's in her confessionals talking about this is what this shit is for, your citizenship. Like, I could have sent you some flowers. Like, I didn't have to be here. It's real. Does it come off mean? Yes. But then again, we know Lisa is not Bronwyn's friend. So at this point, can't be mad at Lisa for stating it. But Bronwyn makes them pick out a wig. She got all these little white wigs, and she wants them to step into 1773. She's got it all set up like that, which she did a very good job because she did set the mood for what she wanted it to be. But she takes them onto the set. It's her version of the Boston Tea Party, which she's calling the Boston Spilled the Tea Party. And she was like, I mean, many of us were not represented well in this group, or at least correctly in this group. So we're going to have a similar situation, a similar enactment to the Boston Tea Party. So as she's talking and like kind of telling them what they're going to do, Mary's walking in and she sees them wigs and she's like, oh no. But she brought her own wig. I said, how convenient. But she got her own wig. She walks on in while they're eating, and Mary's like seeing hot dogs and shit. She's like, I don't want this shit. I can go get a fish fillet from McDonald's. We already know how she is with McDonald's. But they sit down and they have notebooks with their names on it. So Mary's like, I mean, I feel like we about to be in a play. Like the way, because where they're sitting at, it looks like it possibly could be a set. But she's like, I feel like this is going to be a play. Are we going to stand up and start declaring something? Bronwyn tells them behind their chair, they're going to have their own ceremonial tea that they can throw into a harbor, which is not a real harbor. And they're going to label it with the name of the person that they're spilling tea about. Everybody's looking tense at this point. Heather says in her confessionals that clearly Bronwyn didn't learn and didn't get enough from that beating last season. The last time they tried this shit, y'all remember the text in the finale when Angie lit her ass up? That shit still cracks me up to this day. I don't think I'll ever live it down. But Mary, she says it's always a hot mess when it comes to this spilling tea shit. But Angie starts it off. It's about Lisa. No shock there. But Angie says that when Lisa made her announcement about the horse, which we didn't really see because I don't remember seeing it, but they show a flashback when they were on the yacht. Lisa's talking about how she's owning a horse now after the Kentucky Derby? It was one of them derbies. And Angie was like, I wanted to believe her, even though I had heard otherwise. But she spilled the tea talking about Lisa not buying the actual horse. Like, she didn't actually buy the horse. She rented the horse because she had heard from other people. And the flashback shows her pretty much telling Mary that she had heard from one of her friends that Lisa did not, in fact, buy the horse. She was renting the horse. We don't know that to be true. Lisa's stating that she does own the horse. She's looking to get a second horse as well. Angie says, what are you going to do with two horses? Lisa says it's nobody's business, which it really isn't. And Angie was like, but you made an announcement about it. Lisa says, I didn't. From what we see in that flashback, you did. But Angie says you did. Lisa says, no, you did. But Angie's in her confessional stating that Lisa typically brags about things that she buys, but I ain't seen no pictures of her with a horse. I mean, that's valid. It's valid to assume. But Brittany, she goes and she says that she doesn't have anybody that she could think of that she spilled tea about, but she would like to know who was spilling the tea about her flirting with the dude on the yacht. I can't pronounce his name, but she wants to know why, because her and Jared had broken up because of it. Mary's like, oh my God, not Jared. Exactly. Like, why do we always have to talk about him? But Lisa was like, you did. You kissed him. But Brittany says, no, I didn't. I kissed him on the cheek. Brittany, I just messed up my note. Brittany says that Jared got this memo that she was making out with him. And Whitney was like, I mean, I told Justin that she's allowed to flirt. Heather's like, there it is. There's the answer. She's the one that said it. So they show a flashback of Whitney pretty much sending a voice text to Justin, pretty much talking about how proud of Brittany she is, that she was sticking true to her 30-day fast from Jared because she out here living her best life, flirting with people, and she's allowed to flirt. And Whitney was, and what she is, because you're not in a relationship with him. Like, you're not in a relationship with him. If anything, I was going to say, if anything, just be friends with benefits. But then again, he don't really deserve that. But then again, I ain't even going to say what I was about to say. I'm like, moving on. Whitney then says that nobody said that you were making out. We didn't see you with anybody to even confirm that. Brittany says, thank you. Bronwyn says, spill the tea. We over talking about Jared. I said exactly. But Heather, she goes, and I was shocked because I just knew she was going to talk about Lisa. No. She's talking about her bestie, her quote-unquote new friend, Bronwyn. But here she go being messy. She talks about how fascinated she was with the rumor of Todd making out and farting at the same time. You already know that shit cracks me up. But I'm like, didn't you say that you like Bronwyn now? And that's sure. Why are you being messy? And even if this was some of the tea that you spilled, we already know you talk a lot of shit about everybody. You didn't have to bring this up again. But of course you brought it up because you don't like Bronwyn at the end of the day. Like that act of, oh, I like her now. That's bullshit. It's not going to last. But Heather then asked her, did she not find it absurd that was the rumor? And Bronwyn irritatedly tells her, throw the fucking box over. Basically, I don't want to talk about this shit. That's pretty much what Bronwyn was giving her. And Heather's like, so you don't find it funny at all? Why the fuck would she find that funny? Like, why? But Bronwyn says, I don't find it funny. Like, you spilled it. We've heard it. Move on. Heather throws it over and she's like, can I apologize now? Can I? Shut up, Heather. But Bronwyn, she's next. Hers is Whitney. She talks about their lunch, and in an effort to be a good friend to Meredith, she wanted to warn her about something that she felt went a little bit too far, but it in turn upset Whitney, and she wants to apologize for spilling tea that she shouldn't have. Whitney then says, well, I mean, you didn't stop me from having a conversation when we were doing it mid-conversation. Bronwyn says, I did. Whitney says, no, you was laughing. And the flashback shows her laughing. And the reason why she was laughing is because you can tell, and we all know Bronwyn wants to be accepted. So anytime anybody's having a conversation with her and it's gossip, she's going to agree with it. She's going to like laugh with them because that's what she wants. She wants to be accepted. She wants to be included. So if she was to state, no, stop talking about that, she wouldn't get what she wants out of it. But Whitney says, I thought that I was confiding in you having a private conversation. Bronwyn says, take that up with Meredith. I'm not the keeper of Meredith's wine. Whitney says, I'm not either, but I'm the keeper of a private conversation between the two of us. And you broke that trust. Fair. Like, it's truly fair. Like, Whitney's not wrong to be feeling a type of way about Bronwyn running that business back. Granted, Bronwyn, if you are friends with Meredith, you did do the right thing, but like, it's shady to be doing stuff because we all know she was being messy. Like, she wasn't doing that to try and like look out for Meredith. Like, she wants to make sure that everybody approves of her, and she took that back thinking that was going to do good for her with Meredith. But Bronwyn then says that I can apologize for. Whitney says, I mean, you're making me look horrible in front of Meredith. Bronwyn says, if you were so uncomfortable with her knowing about it, you probably shouldn't have said it. I said, and you clocked that because that's the truth. Whitney sitting there looking dumbfounded because she just got clocked. And Bronwyn says, I mean, not to tell me, don't tell me behind her back talking about Meredith, but that's between the two of y'all at this point. Basically, like, that's y'all's business. You handle that shit now. I said messy, but it's true. But Whitney then says, so you think I'm going to call a belligerent woman 2 days after we land? I said, oh, shit. Here we go. Meredith says, so if you want to go there, let's go there. Whitney says, I'd love to go there. So Meredith says, everything that I had said was the truth, so stop your lies. Whitney says that you didn't yell at me on the plane, like you didn't taunt her for 6 hours. Oh, it's 6 now. Y'all went from talking about 5 to 6. Whitney, keep your lies together. Keep your story straight. Like, at this point, keep your story straight. Anytime one of them messes up, I'm going to clock it. How did we go from 5 to 6? It went from 2 to 5 to it went from 5 to 2 to 5 to 6 now. Bring them cameras out. But Meredith says, no, I didn't. Whitney says, can I have the crazy pill that y'all are taking? Lisa cracked me up. She says, apparently you already on them crazy pills. Whitney says, of course, that's the easy route because I'm such a liar. I'm a liar. There's other witnesses that were there as well, Meredith. Meredith says, great, Whitney, you are a liar. Whitney then says in her confessionals that she feels like she's always honest to a point that anytime they lie, they gaslight her, and it's pretty much telling her that she's the one lying. But Whitney says, I mean, if you want to go there, let's go there. Alcoholic, pill popper. I said, you better get careful because she could sue you. And that's defamation. That could be a defamation case. You accusing her of all of this stuff. Like, come on. But Meredith, she gets up and says, I have presents for all of you. Which I was cracking up laughing because I said, after what Whitney just said, I said, Meredith, bring out them drug tests. I was dying. Meredith gets up, says, I got presents for y'all. Whitney says, I'm sick of you character assassinating me. Yet, what are you doing? What are you doing, Whitney? Character assassination of her. But Meredith comes back and she's like, I brought a gift for everybody. So she starts passing them out in their bottles. At least that's what I was thinking. They were in like, you go get some alcohol from the liquor store. They put it in those bags that she has and they talk about something is cold and whatever. So she's passing them out and tells them to open it up. And everybody opens it up. And guess what it is? Drug test. I died laughing. I said, Meredith, she ate this. She ate this. So Meredith says, I'm happy to do a drug test every day of my life because I'm honest about what I do. I'll have a drink here and there, an occasional gummy. And I mean, if you've made accusations against me for substance abuse, I think you should probably take the test. Valid. I said, that's the way to do it, Meredith, because the main one that was calling her an alcoholic and a pill popper was avoiding taking that test. Like, let's clock that. So Whitney says, Meredith says the woman making accusations is so quickly putting it away, which she was. Whitney was trying to stall from taking that test. And Whitney says, so you want me to take down my pants and pee on it? Like the only thing in my system is alcohol. I don't think it would show up on this. I said, yet you sitting here calling her an alcoholic. And we heard what you was doing at BravoCon, how you was busted off your ass while working. Yet you want to call her an alcoholic. But Meredith says, let's see, like you want to spread rumors behind my back every year. Whitney's trying to interject. And Meredith says, stop talking. I'm talking right now. I said, clock her. But Whitney then says, I mean, it's not my intention. Meredith says, yes, it is. It is your intention. Like you're doing what you're doing, not in good faith. The shit that you're doing, it's the same shit that Janet was doing on the Valley. If you were literally really looking out for Meredith, Whitney, you wouldn't be doing the shit on camera. And not only that, you're doing the shit on camera in confessionals to other people. You're talking about this stuff not to Meredith. And when you do talk about it to Meredith, you're talking at her. You're not like trying to tell her, okay, I feel like you might have an issue that we might need to go talk to someone. You're an alcoholic. You're a pill popper. You're doing that aggressively. But Whitney then says, you want me to talk about it in front of everybody? Meredith says, yeah, I do. So Whitney says, I was just reacting to your actions on the plane, deflecting from taking that test. But Meredith says in her confessional, she's tired of the false accusations. She needs to be talking about Whitney, needs to be worried about her own life instead of projecting onto me, which she's literally projecting onto Meredith. But Whitney then says that you do this every time you go to sleep, you wake up more mad, and you did it on the boat. Then saw the flashback of Meredith pretty much waking up, pretty much addressing the shit that she slept on. So Meredith is like, so am I not allowed to go to sleep, think things over, and realize some of the shit that pisses me off? She's not wrong for that. Whitney then says, I mean, I'm just describing my experience with you, and I've witnessed your behavior, and I recognized it. Meredith says, okay, so we're going to backtrack to everything. We're going to backtrack on everything that we've done so far this year. How much have I had to drink? She's pretty much trying to tell her, like, you watched everything that I do. Tell me how much I've had to drink, and you know I haven't had that much. But Whitney then says, this is a sensitive subject in my house. Your situations with what has happened in your life with your family, your friends, whatever's going on, stop projecting that shit onto her. Could Meredith have a problem? Possibly. But you're literally taking your past trauma and then trying to apply it to her. Like, it doesn't work that way. But Whitney then claims that she wishes that Meredith understood why she worries. You don't worry about her. Meredith says, you don't care about me or you would have come to me. I said, exactly. And off camera. If you cared about her, you wouldn't be doing this on camera because you know how it looks. Whitney says, you don't care about me. That's why you won't accept the fact that I love you. I said, so this is how you treat people that you love. This is how you treat them. But Lisa says Whitney's weaponizing her experience, and it's a huge accusation to be making, which it is. And Lisa says in her confessionals, like, instead of having compassion for somebody having an emotional outburst, you want to label her as a drug addict and crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? No wonder she's bringing drug tests. I said, exactly. But Lisa says, like, it's not fair to do this to her, which is not. But Whitney then claims the opportunity to have the conversation got taken away from me because she yelled at me. Meredith says, I did not yell at you on that plane. Mary says that's not how she remembers it in her confessional. We see the flashback to that previous conversation that they had in the last episode. And she's pretty much telling her, yeah, you was yelling at Whitney. So Mary says Meredith did yell at her. She saw it. Heather says to Meredith that she was on the plane and she said it to both of them. Like, she pretty much stating that you screamed at me and Whitney, that if we were friends with Brittany, our friendship with you was over. Meredith is still denying it. Heather ends up asking Lisa, what did Meredith say? Lisa says, I mean, I wasn't there for that. Lisa, they showed a flashback of the conversation they had last week where Lisa literally said what she said. And Heather was like, I mean, that's a different story than what you had told me before. And Meredith is still denying it. Heather says, then why did you send a text apologizing to me? Meredith says, I mean, it wasn't about what I had said. It was about the fact of my tone, like the way I was talking to you. So Meredith says that they had lied, saying horrible things about her that didn't happen. And Heather says, do you believe that I lie? Like, fuck that. You do lie. We know you lie. You lie all the time, Heather. All the time. And we know firsthand. But Heather says that she's furious that Meredith would state that she had lied. Why? Because you always lie, like I just said. But Meredith says, I mean, I didn't say that. Heather says, yes, you did. Like, she did. She did. But Heather then tells her not to gaslight her. I said, oh, you don't like it now. You don't like when you're on the receiving end of the gaslighting. Just like how you gaslit Lisa, like gaslit the fuck out of her and wouldn't leave her alone on that yacht. But Heather then says, I'm upset because of what you did. She starts fake crying, scrunching that hard face up with no tears coming out. But Heather says, I mean, I did nothing wrong. I was a good friend to you. I tried to be a good one to Brittany. And Heather's like, I mean, Meredith and Lisa, y'all have the ability to state your truth. And if we don't fall in line, we're considered liars, and that's not fair. So Heather then states too that I feel unsettled. And I feel like you, talking to Meredith, I feel like you should say that you're horrified about what happened on the plane and you're sorry about what happened, not look at me stating that I'm a liar. You're telling this woman how to apologize for something that she's not sorry for. Again, why do y'all want somebody to apologize for something that they're not sorry for? I understand wanting to hear that, but to try and force her to say that. So if she was to just say that, you'd be okay with it because she don't mean it. So at that point, you're okay with just anything. But Meredith says, I mean, I think we should move on. AKA, I'm not apologizing for that shit because I don't feel sorry for it. And I respect Meredith for it. I'm not apologizing for nothing that I don't feel sorry for. So I don't blame Meredith. But Bronwyn, she then gets up to change outfits. She comes back in a Constitution dress. And she's like, I just want to make amendments that families are off limits. Heather says hers, which is to be a woman of your word. You're not. Lisa says be the friend that you expect others to be. Lisa, you got to work better with that. Mary says that we not only are here for each other, but we also have to forgive. You also need to work on that. Whitney says business, marriages, and children are off limits. You know you need to work on that. Angie says being careful about the things that are being said about people without documentation. You need to work on that. Brittany says to see the best in people. Your daughter. How about you start working on that? Meredith says stop the reactive abuse. That's all I got to say. And when I tell you Meredith cracks me up. Mary was like, I'm confused. I was dying laughing. Meredith, she won the episode for me. Even though she got caught in a couple lies, Meredith cracked me up. When she brought that drug test out, I said, that's how you do it. But if you haven't already, I was stumbling over my words throughout this recap because it's late at night. And I wasn't actually going to do this tonight. I was going to do it tomorrow. I was going to do it tonight, but then I got sidetracked. But then I was not going to do it tonight. But then I watched the episode and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this tonight. So thumbs it up, get in the comments, share the video, hype the video, subscribe if you're new. And I will see y'all next Tuesday. We're going to be back on Tuesdays because Dancing with the Stars is done. But I'll see y'all then. Peace.